Hey y'all, it's your girl Gemini Jazz with House of Chiron, and in this video we are going to dive into the explanation of the United States Pluto return. This has been a trending topic and lots of people have come and asked me, questions about it and what are my views and my outtakes on this Pluto return and what is to come for the United States. So I'm going to give my interpretation. Also, just a quick disclaimer that none of what I speak about is stating that is actual, factual, what's going to pan out. These are just possibilities based on what the astrology is telling me, also based on historical facts of what has happened for other nations or other empires during their Pluto return. So we're going to dive into all of that and whatnot. But before we get into this United States Pluto return reading, I guess you can call it, we are going to first do some announcements. And if you are not subscribed to my channel, now is the time to do so. You can hit that subscribe button. And yeah, so that way you will not miss any updates or any of my astrology forecasts that I post every week and so on and so forth. Okay, also the announcements that I have, one of which is the Celestial City that is still open. You are more than welcome to join us for some astrology readings, for some Reiki, also to learn basic one-on-one astrology information so you can read your own chart, have some quick interpretations of those things and whatnot. Also, we have the March readings that are coming out at the end of this week. They should be posted sometime around the 28th, like the day before March actually begins, if not a little sooner. But you can also purchase those readings. All of that information is at the description box below, and you can find those links that will navigate you all the way to my website and all of those beautiful things. Okay, so thank you again for being here. Now let's dive into this energy about this United States Pluto return, okay? Excuse me. So first and foremost, this return is going to, it's not like, a normal transit that we have, on a daily basis where, you have a transit, you might feel it for a day or so, or maybe even a week. It's nothing even like our moons, right? How we have a full moon or a new moon, and then that energy kind of plays itself out over the next 6 months. This is going to be energy that lasts for as long as, a couple of years, at least until Pluto enters into Aquarius, which doesn't happen until 2023. And we'll talk more about that as we progress into this reading. So Pluto is, let's talk about that. What is Pluto? Where is Pluto? Pluto sits in the outermost region of our solar system. So this is the planet, and they like to try and take its title of being a planet, but I still consider, and most astrologers still consider it to be a planet. Okay, so Pluto sits in the outermost region of our solar system, is farthest from the sun, and the size of this planet does not compare to the impact that it truly has on humanity. Okay, the full effects of Pluto's energy cannot be witnessed immediately, which is why this Pluto return is going to pan itself out over the next couple of years or so. Now, with time and awareness, we can see the immense transformations that Pluto caused for all of our futures, right? It is a generational planet is what I like to call it. It affects generations at a time, okay? So Pluto carries that energy of transformation, rebirth, regeneration, endings, power struggles. So just as much as Pluto governs these areas of metamorphosis, it also brings about destruction, death, obsessions, crime, and all aspects of things that are underground or unseen or secretly hidden, right? Because Pluto it rules secrets. So now with that being said, Pluto is the ruler of the zodiac sign of Scorpio, and also it governs the 8th house in astrology. Okay, so what are these dynamics? All of these things, they rule intimate relationships, joint finances, debt, karma, other people's money, shared resources, inheritance, loans. Pluto in, Scorpio energy, everyone knows it to be, known for sex and, our reproductive organs. That's very important with the timing that's going on to have that awareness, right? It also governs divination, psychology, and many other taboo topics that reside in that 8th house or in those Scorpio kind of energies. Okay, now also it rules our psyches, right? Because it does govern psychology, it rules our psyches. So Pluto always asks us to dive into those parts of our subconsciousness to truly build awareness of where it's necessary to redeem ourselves and to regenerate our souls. Okay, so it's that death and that rebirth. Something must die in order for something to be reborn. There's a metamorphosis that's happening. So moving on, Pluto takes about 248 years to complete its transit through all 12 signs. So a Pluto return occurs every 248 years when Pluto visits the same sign and the same degree of the person, place, or thing whenever it was birthed or created and all that good stuff. Okay, so during a Pluto return, there's a possibility for upheaval, maybe even confronting things that are in the shadows. There's also high possibilities for major transformations, karmic debt to be paid, and just immense change in general. Now, Pluto's purpose is to deconstruct what no longer serves us as a whole and bring in a new structure into the dynamic. So we can see that wherever Pluto resides in your chart, it has brought in a lot of transformation. It has kind of stripped down those areas that it governs in your chart in order to bring in a new way of going about doing things. Now, Pluto's purpose is to deconstruct, like I mentioned. So with bringing in that new dynamic, we can see this occurring in history with the falling of several empires, especially during their Pluto return. So for instance, we have the fall of the Roman Empire, which occurred sometime after its Pluto return, between the age of, or the time of 216 to 223 AD. So in history, this period is known for massive instability, change, divisiveness within leadership. That Plutonian power struggle was there, also sex scandals, religious debates that plagued the empire, especially between the time of 218 and 222 AD, while it was under the ruling thumb of the emperor, I can't remember his name, I can't pronounce his name, Elagabalus, I believe is how you pronounce it, but either way. So that was within the Roman Empire. Now let's look at the British Empire, which has survived 3 Pluto returns. So this does not necessarily mean that this planet is going to go up in flames and it's going to, be destroyed completely. It does not mean that the United States is going to physically crumble, so to speak. Just like the British Empire has survived 3 of these Pluto returns, dating 311 to 315, 1555 to 1562, and 1801 to 1810. Now, keep in mind that, Pluto does not always have a Pluto return or have like the transit of it. It needs to have a wide range of that return energy. And so we're going to dive more into that. So it needs to have something like a buffer period before the actual Pluto return and a buffer period after. So you can see the manifestations of these things. Because Pluto's transit can last anywhere from, 12 years, 8 years, up to 30 years. So it ranges depending, which is why it takes so long to do a complete transit through all 12 zodiac signs. So now let's talk about the United States. Okay, I'm going to pull up the US birth chart. Okay, so according to the Declaration of Independence, the United States was born on July 4th, 1776 at 5:10 p.m. in Philadelphia. So this gives the nation a Cancer sun, Cancer moon, Sagittarius rising using Placidus. So I'm going to share my screen and show that energy really quickly, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's going on and pull it up. Here we are. All right, so this is the energy for the United States. So like I mentioned before, it is giving a Cancer sun. Okay, we also have an Aquarius moon and a Sagittarius rising. So Pluto sits in the 2nd house. Okay, so Pluto is in the 2nd house. And as we can see Pluto here on the outside, it is making its complete return. Now, what are the second house themes? That's something we should consider. We're going to dive into that. We also have to look at the rulership of Pluto. Where is that, right? Pluto rules Scorpio. That's between the 11th and the 12th house. Okay, so this is how we're going to see these things kind of express itself. The Pluto energy is going to express itself in the 11th house, 12th house energies, as well as within the second house energies. So the moon is going to be in Scorpio during the time of this Pluto return as well. So the moon is the ruler of, our commitments, right? 7th house, also our joint resources, finances, all our resources, right? Other people's money. So the moon is also in this transformational kind of space as well. Now, keep in mind that we have, Pluto making its return at the same time that we have the South Node that just recently moved into Scorpio. So with the South Node being there, that's something else to consider as well, okay? So I'm going to stop the share so we can still talk about it. Now, with that being said, it's a Cancer sun, Aquarius moon, Sagittarius rising. Pluto sits in the second house, like we just saw. And this is the house of finances, values, partnerships, our self-worth, our material possessions. So this is for United States. It's about all those things that we have, or those values, those things that we possess, right? So this sector of our chart indicates our earning power, what we find valuable, and the things we acquire throughout life as well. So in the case of the United States, Capricorn occupies the second house, giving it a controlled way of financial power. Capricorn governs structure, the government, politics, restrictions. And so when we bridge all of this information together with the understanding that Pluto's return is to conduct some type of checks and balances within these financial sectors of the United States, we see that there's a crucial indication for change that's coming regarding these finances. Pluto's half return, let's do some history. Pluto's half return, so meaning that when it was halfway through its Pluto return, that occurred, I'm not going to tell you when, I'm going to allow you to guess when. So this transit happened when it was in the sun sign of Cancer, right? So Pluto was transiting the United States sun sign. So this was the half return when it was halfway through. So let's think about that. Okay, when was that time? It was during the 1930s. Yes, the Great Depression. So during the 1930s, this is when we kind of got a glimpse of what could possibly come, or what changes needed to be made. And during that time, we changed a lot within our banking, okay? So that's also another key indication. So, and it was in the United States 8th house, okay? Which is other people's money. Also rules banks, it rules loans. You remember how people used to just do IOUs back in the 1930s, and that was part of, the crash and all those things. Now, once Pluto entered into Capricorn, this is another bit of history. Once Pluto entered Capricorn, this was on November 26th of 2008. This was the start of the Pluto return. This was because, like I mentioned before, you kind of got to give it a broad range of energy, because it takes so long to get through one sign. So once it actually entered into Capricorn, that's when the Pluto return kind of kicked off. Now, what happened in 2008, November 26, 2008? Several things occurred. Okay, first and foremost, we got the first election of our Black president, Barack Obama. And also we got the collapse of the banking system. Okay, so another key indication of our finances and the things that we quote unquote possess. Now, when Pluto reaches 27 degrees in Capricorn, which is its return, it will trine the North Node, which is in Taurus. So North Node, South Node. Now, I was mentioning how the South Node just recently moved into Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. So the South Node is about us needing to loosen the grips on things, taking what we have obtained and the wisdom that we've acquired over time and using that to stand on in order to propel in a new direction. It's a collective focus, a collective progression into a new direction, but not forgetting where we have come from, but loosening the grips, right? It could also be seen as like a karmic release of things. Now, With the South Node being in Scorpio at the same time, I mentioned previously when I was discussing on one of my other videos about the South Node and North Node towards Scorpio axis, that there are many different manifestations that can come with the North Node and South Node being in these signs. Now, the South Node being in Scorpio, Scorpio rules resources, right? So this could be all kind of resources, especially the resources that we obtain from underground, because Scorpio rules things that are underground. So there might be a change in our possessions, our material gains, the things that we have gained, because Scorpio sits in the 11th and also the 12th house, depending on what chart you're looking at. But Placidus, it splits in both 11th and 12th. So with it being in the South Node being in the 11th and or 12th house during this time, there's a high possibility that there's going to be major change within our resources, whether it's oil, gold, gems, anything that we obtain from underground. There's going to be a change in that. There might even be a release of that, like where we no longer use that as a resource, right? Because our financial system is not what it used to be. Our money, was not backed by, it once was backed by gold, and now it is no longer backed by gold. And so it might be a change or a shift in that might come. Okay, so also with the South Node rules crime, the Scorpio rules crime, and the South Node is in this area. So, mobsters, the mafia, things like that, that might be like a release of that energy. Even loans, anything that uses power or force or violence, because it's very Scorpio rule themes as well, in order to push its agenda, in order to get resources from someone. Like the IRS is also very, Scorpio rule things, banking systems. There might be major transformations within like these areas that use force, that use, certain types of initiatives to get what they desire, money, having control over one's possessions. There might be a major change in all of these things that are coming. Okay, so that's also something to consider with the South Node being in Scorpio. Now, opposite of that, because they sit on an axis, the North Node and South Node, they sit on an axis. And the South Node, although it's there in Scorpio in the 11th and 12th house during this transit, the North Node is there and it's opposite. It's in the 5th house. So this is more about, embracing your creativity, embracing your self-expression, embracing your wholeness, achieving that, having control over the things that you find valuable, right? Because it's Taurus. Taurus is of value, and having that control, being able to make those determinations and those decisions for yourself, right? It's about considering yourself, but not forgetting the whole, right? The collective, which is the 11th house, which is about, it's Aquarian ruled energy. Okay, so that's kind of giving a little background about the South Node, North Node energy that's also playing a major role in this. Okay, so now also, let's talk about what Pluto is about on another level. So on a spiritual level, let's talk about the Scorpio energy. So Scorpio, the story of Scorpio is that it is first born as a Scorpio, and then it dies and it comes back as an eagle. Okay, what is the United States, mascot? It's the eagle, right? So that is our thing. Once the eagle dies, it then comes up, it then is reborn as the phoenix. So this is the start of the death of the Scorpio. Okay, South Node and Scorpio being released. Okay, the death of that Scorpio energy, in order for the eagle to be born, in order for the eagle to die and the phoenix to rise yet again. Okay, so this is something to also consider with all of this energy. Now, we might not see the manifestations of this for years to come, but this is definitely something that we have been feeling and briefly, kind of subtly, like witnessing. It's like this covert energy that's going on behind the scenes when it comes to the United States financial structure, when it comes to the things that the United States use law and restriction in order to possess, right? So this is a karmic return. This is Pluto coming back, doing checks and balances on, where the United States has gone and where it is currently. Now, we bridge all this information together And once Pluto enters into Aquarius, I believe, me personally, that's when I believe that we are embarking on the age of Aquarius. That's my astrology, insight on that. Every astrologer has a different, aspect, and none of them are wrong. All of them are accurate in its own right. Okay. So my theory is that when Pluto enters into Aquarius, that is when the start of the age of Aquarius begins. Okay. So anywho, we bridge all this information together because we know now that the universe is doing some checks and balances for the financial sector and the things that the United States have taken control over as their possessions. So we see this being, that indication for change that's coming. All right. Now, when this trine happens at the time that Pluto reaches 27 degrees on February 22nd of 2022, it's going to make that trine to the North Node. And so this is like in the 5th and 6th house kind of energy, right? So this is about your work, your acts of service, your open enemies, your rituals, your routines. So with this being there, Taurus is the ruler of the 2nd house. Traditionally, it governs the 2nd house. So this indicates a genuine shift in the nation's financial structure, as it moves through the 12th house, the 11th and the 12th house. So, the South Node is moving through the 11th and 12th house, as well as when, the moon is there also in Scorpio and is moving through the 11th and 12th house. So keep mind on all of this. So when we see this energy, the moon is going to be moving through the 12th house mostly during this time. And so we find comfort, right? Because the moon is about our comfort. We find comfort in achieving our goals in different ways. It's going to begin to make the changes. We are encouraged to, consider other people. The United States has to be encouraged to consider the whole, the collective, everyone, not just the people at the top. So Pluto, like I mentioned, rules Scorpio. So the expression of this energy is kind of flavored with that North Node theme, the theme of that, things coming undone, especially that 12th house energy, right? Because, Scorpio is also in the 12th house of the chart. So with it kind of having that flavor of things coming undone, because the 12th house in astrology represents the house of undoing. Okay, so things are coming undone, things are dissolving. Also, in order for things to come undone, first you must see the light, you must see the truth of things. Okay, so that is that 12th house energy, and Pluto is all about that. Now, Pluto is also about obsessions and control. So when we consider the reassessment of the 2nd house things of America's chart, we come to many questions, one of which is, has America's obsession with authority and power come under review now? Absolutely. Also, we are to consider America's misuse of power regarding financial matters. Yep. And how will these themes play out? Right. So there have been many different theories and conversations about the possessions of America, including the control and possessions of the Black population, also women's reproductive organs, reparations, student loans, and other Capricornian, Plutonian, and Saturnian themes. Okay, so, Capricorn, Pluto, Saturn, Scorpio, that's a lot of this energy that we are dealing with. So all of these things are all ruled by these energies. So we can see a significant shift in the dynamic of these topics, happening in real time, whether it's covertly or, boldly out in the open. Now, as we are embarking on the age of Aquarius, like I mentioned, is going to happen for me when Pluto enters in Aquarius on March 23rd of 2023, which is not a ironic number because, the Pluto return is happening on 2/22 of 2022. And then we have Pluto entering into Aquarius on 3/23/2023. Yeah. And that is all about 5, the number 5, which is massive change and transformation. Okay. So just keeping that in mind. Now, this is how we should see this energy coming up for us. It's like the underdog now comes on top. The question is, what happens when the underdog becomes ruled, right? When he and or she is now on top to make changes, do we then behave and act? Do we see that the people then take over this power and we become the very thing that oppressed us? Or do we use this in a in a way to liberate, right? That Aquarian rule, the Aquarian theme is to liberate, to bring freedom. So that is a question to consider, okay? Now, like I said, that's a phrase that comes to the mind. Now, the scales are tipping. This is showing us a change in power dynamics and also how power is used all together, because Pluto, Scorpio, all that energy is all about power struggles. So after any Pluto return in any empire or any nation, the ways that once were can no longer be after undergoing this radical revision. There's no going back to how the country has operated since the beginning of its creation. And this is definitely like the turning point. Okay, so that is my energy for that. Now we can just do some really kind of like quick, I guess you can say, a review of the chart once again. So let's do this chart. Yes. All right. So like I was saying before, we have Pluto is here. I'm not sure if you can see my little thing here, but Pluto is here in the second house. Okay, so Pluto is expressing itself out here in the 11th house. So what is the 11th house? It's material gains. It is our goals. It's the legacy. It is the things that the United States has acquired over time. It's also the vision, the focus. So the vision, right? Let's think about the history of the United States. How did it begin, right? It is when rule left Europe, came over here, right? Escaping the authority, seeking sovereignty, right? Seeking sovereignty, seeking its own way of doing things. But what in turn happened is exactly what I was speaking about. The underdog came on top and used the same authority, the same, power dynamics to create the very thing that they were running from, right? So instead of seeking sovereignty and truth, it then turned into something dark, right? What is the opposite of that? It is self-righteousness. Okay, so with this Cancer sun, the way of expressing itself is like to build a foundation, right? To build a sense of comfort, to build a new commitment, right? Being that it's in the 7th house, to build a new commitment to the comforts and the foundation of this nation. But how? On whose backs, right? So that is something also to consider. And when we have this Aquarius moon, yes, the comfort should have been about, liberating the people, but that's not how it truly was. It was more so a possessive kind of energy that manifested in turning that energy into making it a resource in order to build the foundation. So with all that being said, the moon rules Cancer. The moon is expressing itself in the 7th and 8th house, right? Although it's in the 3rd house, it's expressing itself in the 7th and 8th house. So, the small business once turned into big business, right? The sun is expressing itself in its 8th house, 9th house also, but mostly the 8th house, which is joint finances, shared resources, just resources in general. Also those taboo things. So there's a lot that is occurring here. Now we have, what's going on, not to mention we have Venus and Mars both in a conjunction at the time of this Pluto return, okay? So Venus and Mars are going to do this thing where they have been chasing each other and they both are going to enter into Aquarius in the same day, basically. So it's kind of like they are fighting for power, fighting for control. They're going back and forth where Venus is chasing Mars and then Mars is chasing Venus, and they go back and forth doing this dance, and they meet and they connect, and then there's like this renewal of this passion, this renewal of this commitment, right? And then they enter into Aquarius for liberation and freedom, and to gain higher knowledge together, right? To experience autonomy within their expression, right? So keep in mind that this is also something that's playing out at the same time. Now, this trine here to North Node is in the 6th house, but it also can be seen as being in the 5th house as well. So 5th, 6th house, depending on, which chart you're using, it's about pushing us into this new way of doing things. Our rituals and routines are going to be changing. We can see that in the work dynamics, right? We can see that in how we are actually going to work. We're not typically going to work. We're literally working here at home. We are also seeing that this has been a possibility for a very long time, and yet and still big business, this country as a big business and capitalism has kept us from having those comforts that we deserve, choosing or pushing us to it's creating this illusion, right? Because keep in mind that during this time, Neptune is opposite. It's Neptune was opposite the natal Neptune. So Neptune is here at the very bottom in Pisces, making an opposition to the natal Neptune in Virgo. So this does not happen often. This happens like every 80 years in anyone's chart. So this is not a major, a normal kind of transit either. So keep that in mind. So these are the illusions that are being stripped away. These are the things that are being dissolved, right? Within the foundation, within the environment, within, our perceptions, our beliefs, our thoughts, ideas, the things that we have been that has been dropped on us and placed on us, right? There's like this complete excavation that's happening collectively. Also, you can see lots of division happening, right? It's like this group to that group. You see religion versus spirituality. This has been dynamics that have been going on for a very long time, but now it's coming to a head. And at some point, we have to decide on unification, and also decide that all parts and all theories, all thoughts, all beliefs are right in their own way. There's only truth, right? So truth is truth. Just because something is a fact doesn't make it true, right? So that's kind of the energy that we are working under. And we can definitely see that once we are beyond this, that there's going to be this phoenix rising kind of energy, and we're not going to see the full manifestations of this happening this year. There's going to be definite dynamics happening over the next year and a half as the South Node is transiting through Scorpio and the North Node is moving through Taurus. We're definitely going to see this occurring all the way until 2023 for sure. Major things coming out. We might even see like some natural disasters with our earth, right? Taurus rules the earth, and Scorpio rules resources. So it could be like oil things that are going on that create disasters or whatever, maybe even nuclear things that are going on where that is no longer able to be used or had at all, and it might just completely dissolve. Things like that might come up. So that is my wrap up for the most part. So I'm going to post like just a brief write-up about this on my social platforms as well as on my blog, on my website. So you can take a look at that as well, or you can always watch this video. So I hope that this has been beneficial and helpful. I am open to discuss what anyone else has an idea about, their beliefs, their perceptions of how this might manifest. I am open to dialogue about it and all those good things. So I look forward to connecting with you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Have a wonderful month. March is already like here. So, where's 2022 going? It's going, definitely. So yes, don't forget to check the description box for the membership, the readings, and anything else that I may post or any events that may be coming up. So have a good one.